I love the smell of nature. But you know what's better than nature? Staying inside and playing a board game. But what if the board game in question was about nature and also made out of nature? Well, that's a win for you, a win for me, and also nature gets paid in exposure. Cascadia is the latest release from publisher Flatout Games, whom you might remember from our recent video on Calico, a cat-themed tile-laying game that looks all cute and innocent, and then it scratches your cornea. I've got a little secret I'd like to share with you. Here at No Pun Included, we've been very impressed with publisher Flatout Games output, who for our money have not had a single miss yet. Lighter games, which are this publisher's specialty, sometimes don't get as much buzz in our hobby. But if you've been looking for something that's perfectly crunchy for you, but also approachable for your family, then don't sleep on Cascadia because it is their best game yet. Also, it has bears, and if you fall asleep next to a bear, it will steal your lunch money. Cascadia belongs to the grand board gaming tradition of laying some tiles and scoring some points. If you're thinking Carcassonne, but with American animals, you're not far off. In this game, tile by tile, you'll be developing the landscape of the Pacific Northwest and populating it with cool mammals like hawks or salmon. On the surface, Cascadia doesn't seem to offer anything that myriads of other games in this genre already don't. For example, one of the game's objectives is to score some of the same type of area with more of that same type of area. If you get some mountains next to some other mountains, that's 1 point per tile that has a mountain. You'll only score for the largest clump of mountains, but that makes sense. Mount Kilimanjaro? Thank you very much. I will be leaving my trash on the Everest. Once again, we're invoking Carcassonne, placing the same type of location next to each other. Roads next to roads, castle next to castle, field next to field. And it sort of works the same here. Water next to water, forest next to forest, Las Vegas next to Reno. Although, unlike in Carcassonne, tiles don't have to cohere with each other, you simply want them to. But as you might have guessed, there is a delicious wrinkle. The joke being here that it's the animal tiles that are the wrinkle, and this one is salmon, which is delicious. These are bears, which are not delicious, but you are delicious to them. So, as you can see, this gag totally works. Animals. They can be a lot to handle, especially when you have peanut butter on your cheek. Now, excuse me whilst I lay this animal down so I can tell you more about laying down animals. In Cascadia, tiles come with a paired animal. At the start of the game, you'll set up a tile shop consisting of 4 tiles and 4 animal tokens, each drawn from a face-down pile or a bag. When your turn starts, you have to pick one of these pairs and then you have to place both of them somewhere on your board. Tiles are simple. Just place one wherever you like, as long as it's adjacent to another one of your tiles. Animals are more complicated because they have to go on top of a tile, and that tile has to depict the animal that you are placing. And just like tiles themselves, animals have their own scoring system. Different critters want different types of environment. Foxes, for example, like throwing a good party, and they want to invite everyone in the forest. They need more parties in the USA. For each different type of animal you surround a fox with, you will score more points. Salmon likes to do the conga. The more you can snake salmon together, the more points you're going to get. Bears, on the other hand, like to stay in monogamous couples. You might even call them the boomers of the forest. Hawks hate other hawks, full stop, and want none of them nearby, whereas elk like to form straight queues. They represent the British. Again, you might say there's nothing happening here that we haven't seen in other games. Creating patterns in board games is pretty common. In fact, laying tiles to create patterns in board games is pretty common. What sets Cascadia apart? Well, the answer to that might not sound immediately insightful or particularly revelatory, but what made me want to cover Cascadia was just very tight and very careful design. There's a sense of cohesion and purity here that I often find lacking in weaker tile-laying games. No rule exists in this game that detracts from the design as a whole, and every element interlocks to create mountains of fun. At first sight, Cascadia might seem relaxed and breezy, but I'd equate it to a well-wound clothesline, thin in appearance but strong and tense enough to support anything you chuck on top of it. You start the game with a triple tile with spaces for animals uncovered. Each time you add another tile into your landscape, you also add another animal piece and cover up an existing empty space. Meaning that at any given moment you have only 4 available spaces where you can place the animal tile that you've just picked up. And as your landscape grows and you add more tiles, you also create more puzzles and more restrictions. Let's say that I've been growing these 2 clumps of river. Because I only score for my largest clump of river, I would ideally place a tile right here to connect both of them. And finally, the tile that I wanted has just appeared in the shop, but sadly it comes paired together with a hawk. So I could, of course, place this here, and finally I have my one giant river. But then if I have to place the hawk, I have to place it either here, which is one of the 2 available spaces, where it'll be next to another hawk, totally negating any points I gain from any of them, or I could place it right here next to the fox, but the fox wants different types of animals adjacent to it, and if I place that here, I'm ruining the fox's party. What you have here are 2 opposing elements forced to coexist. I want tiles with the same terrain next to each other, but they might not play well with the animals depicted on them. And in addition to that, the animals you actually place on top of them compete for space as well. And Cascadia is a classic buddy cop drama. One is a loose cannon, the other plays by the rules. And then to alleviate the tension, what you need is the stooge. Some tiles only depict one animal and have a single type of terrain. They are particularly restrictive because if you don't find a perfect place for them to go, you might permanently decrease the number of viable options of animal placement spots. However, when you do place the correct animal on top, you will get a leaf token, and these are worth a point at the end of the game, and that's not to be sniffed at. But more importantly, they let you manipulate the shop. By spending a leaf token, you can break apart tile and token pairs. As long as there's a tile you want and an animal you want in the shop, you can take them. But if there isn't a token you want, you can, once again spending a leaf token, send them all away and draw an entirely new array of animals to potentially populate your wilderness. And when the game is nearing the end, and you haven't, for example, got a bear to fill out that monogamous couple so they can hang out together and make you, I don't know, points children, that can be pretty crucial. What I hope I'm getting across is that the structure of Cascadia is pretty simple. It's easy to grasp and easy to teach, but upon that bedrock sits a puzzle that emerges as you play, not when the game is being taught to you. Board gamers like to sometimes call these games gateway games, something to introduce people into board gaming with, but I think that term does a lot of disservice because it implies that for anyone who's been playing board games for a while, there might not be as much to discover. What that means is that a great gateway game is a design that needs to work 3 times as hard. It needs to be approachable by broad audiences. It needs a hook that literally emerges from the cardboard as you play and you go, oh, I get it now. And it also needs to have something to keep the jaded old timers ticking. A design like Cascadia needs not only to be tight and fun, it also needs to fight prejudice. In truth, modern board games have had so much iteration lately that each genre sort of peaked at a plateau. So no, Cascadia isn't the best tile-laying game. By now that's purely a matter of preference, but it is up there with the best, and I think that counts for a lot. I've long been fascinated with the American Northwest, the Nevada desert, the Oregon forests, and the mountain ranges in British Columbia, And I really hope that when this pandemic is over, I'll get to actually visit them and see them for myself. I was primed to at least have partial fondness for Cascadia for that alone, but there's no chance I would have enjoyed it as much if it wasn't a great game to begin with. I really like that by laying these tiles, I create spaces where these animals can coexist, and if I lay them well, I'll create a thriving ecosystem. There's a harmony between mechanisms and setting, and it creates just enough of a thematic wing to please me. Great art by Beth Sobel helps too, and so does the overall sense that the design and production team put a lot of effort thinking about the little things. Like making sure that the game winds up in just the right amount of time, where you almost completed all your goals, but you're not quite there yet, and then the game leaves you hanging. Or how there's an achievement system that creates different combinations of scoring conditions and asks you to hit certain milestones during your game. It's cute, and it gives me more reason to return. Or how there's a family variant that simplifies scoring conditions in case you're teaching kids who are new to games altogether, and then an intermediate variant for when they've learned the game but you want it to take one step forward. Or how if you really want some crunch and burn, some of these alternate animal scoring cards are really out there. Honestly, if you feel like this might be too light for you to play with, then take set D. It'll literally feel like you're wrestling a grizzly, a hawk, and a fox, and a salmon at the same time. Which I guess puts me in a weird place. Let me be a little candid in this verdict. I think Cascadia is tremendous. It hits all the right notes, the setting appeals to me, but also the tone is exactly what I want. But I feel sheepish about saying that because I know that light games don't get anywhere near as much attention as the heftier counterparts of our hobby. I know that by simply invoking Carcassonne, I will make people turn their noses. I want to toot Cascadia's horn, but at the same time, I don't want to oversell it. It is more than it seems, but at the same time, it is exactly what it seems. A light tile layer, much gentler than its sibling Calico, but nonetheless puzzly enough to keep most folks entertained with a great arc and enough variety to keep coming back to. That's the end of the Cascadia review, but it's not the end of this video because I am yet to tell you about the MPI to 100 campaign. If you've been watching this channel but haven't yet subscribed, please do us a big favor and hit the subscribe button because getting to 100k is going to be a long journey and we can't do it without you. So if you have been watching and you have been enjoying, a simple subscription really helps a lot. There's other ways you can help as well. You can tell all your friends about MPI. If you're playing with other board gamers and you know that they haven't heard the good word of MPI yet, you need to go and tell them the good word of MPI. And in return, we'll be highlighting other creators in our hobby. And this week, it's Our Family Plays Games. If any part of playing board games to you is being a member of a community, then there's no other channel on YouTube that emphasizes being part of the community as much as Our Family Plays Games. In fact, it's in the title. They keep repeating it. It's about family. And they treat the board gaming hobby and the board gaming community as family. And if you don't believe me, just watch some of their videos and you'll find out for yourselves. But that's just one part of what makes Our Family Plays Games special. The other part, you kind of have to see for yourself, but it is that amount of character and exuberance that you will get from Mick and Starla. They are amazing, and you do yourself a favor and go check the channel out. The link is in the description. That's it. That's the end, but obviously there's some videos floating nearby, and I am obligated to mention that we do have a Patreon and we do have a lovely community on Patreon. There's an exclusive Discord. You should go check it out. That's all very good, and there might be a little break until the next video, but that's because the next one is gonna be a very big one. See you later.